Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone from Melbourne, Australia. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Daily Gen AI News Briefing with the team from GAI Insights, where we rate and debate the importance of the latest enterprise AI news, giving it a final rating of essential, important, or optional. I'm Adam Rappaport, research analyst in TechWizard, and today with me I have John Sviokla, Paul Beyer, and Ankaj Handa. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you as well. Please, if you'd like to follow along from home, you can go to our website, gaiinsights.com/articles, and we have the links there for everything we're reviewing today. I think that, Ankaj, with that, let's kick things off.
Good, thanks, Adam. So the first one that we have for today comes from Anthropic, and they have offered us the Anthropic Economic Index.
Yeah, John, what's going on with this news out of Anthropic?
Yeah, I thought this was really interesting. Yeah, they have some fantastic data in terms of what people are actually coming to the model for, and what kind of interactions they're using. And they've now published this out as part of a beginning thread they have in terms of the economic implications of these models. And not surprisingly, you have a lot of things in the area of computer programming and mathematics as areas where the model is being used the most. What I found interesting about this is they also are really inviting the public to come in and use the data. They've shared their data, they've shared their analysis, and will do so on an ongoing basis. And I think this is super important, for our AI leader to understand. I was between important and essential. And the reason is there's been a lot of talk about the impact on jobs, and there's some decent analyses. We've done some, Accenture's analysis isn't bad, McKinsey's analysis isn't bad. Our friend Eric Brynjolfsson and Andy McAfee over at Stanford have their Work Helix product, which is I haven't reviewed it, but reportedly very good. But this is the first time I've seen where you actually have actual behavioral data, how people are using the model. And I'm reminded of that book about Google and what people really search for. And what people really search for as compared to what they talk about searching for is very different. And I bet we're going to see the same thing here. So I was going to rate that. I'm really on the fence between important and essential, as it gives some great data and opens a whole conversation about how to analyze the impact of these models on task level activity, which I think is the right level to look at.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, so let me, John, nudge it to essential for slightly different reasons. So one, I don't want our AI leader worrying about job loss. If they do that, they should go to a policy institution. But I think they do need to look at this because this shows what the general world is using. And I think they need to get a mindset to do the same thing for their organization. So imagine having this for Fidelity, having everything and really using that to justify your case. So I think for that reason and starting to think about the type, it is essential for our leaders to start understanding this.
Yeah, I hear about the policy job loss thing, but I would say that our AI leaders and established organizations need a point of view on what's going to happen to labor, because it's going to be part of their organizational change process. I don't think they can be callous. Well, it depends, I guess, on who you work for. But
well, no, I agree. So that's job loss inside the organization.
Sure.
But obsessing over job loss in the society, I think, is a different role.
Fair enough.
Interesting. I actually agree with both of you on all points. I like that that it's data driven, and also the one of the key insights there is that the usage leans towards augmentation over automation. To your point, Paul, right? This is going to enable organizations to get more done, to work more efficiently, not necessarily to replace the people who have the knowledge. So I'm happy to support Essential on this one as well. It's a good read. It's data driven, and they've open sourced the data, so everyone can really lean into this and get value out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, John.
I thought there was a selection bias on that issue of automation augmentation, because it wasn't clear to me if API calls from different scripts or, agents would actually show up in this data because they use Clio. So anyway, I didn't lean hard on that.
Then we'll make it essential for all of your reasons, not mine. Great. Thanks so much. It's a great read. Let's move along, Ankash. Thank you.
Okay, the next one comes from Stretchery and Ben Thompson. It talks about the impact of deep research on knowledge value.
Yeah, Paul, what did you take away from this one?
I'm going to be in my soapbox rant here. I have this as optional because I don't think it makes time sense. AGI is here today. AGI is here tomorrow. No one can agree on definition. I don't think it changes budget allocations or what AI leaders ask for. So I have it as optional. Certainly interesting, but I think I may be in the minority, but I have it as optional.
John?
Yeah, no, I can go for optional. I had to put a little filter on myself because I don't like the way this guy writes. So I come in prejudiced against him. So I was between optional and important. But, you know, the content, and the reason I don't like the way he writes, I think he's, whatever, unnecessarily verbose. But he's basically making the point that, you know, these deep research capabilities, especially from OpenAI at $200 a month, is really fantastic. And, you know, he went through, you know, examples of how it does it generally on Apple's earnings. It looks at, you know, Ben has been tracking Apple for a dozen years, and so it looks at his research and so forth. So yet another person saying that this deep research capability out of OpenAI and others is really important. I agree with that. I don't think it adds a lot to the conversation, so I'm for optional.
Yeah, I'm with you both. I think it put a bunch of information out there, but it probably could have been a paragraph. Let's move along. Yeah, very good. Optional it is.
Robot would write something this convoluted.
The next one yes, Adam. So the next one comes from Zifra and talks about the beta release of their Zonos V0.1.
Yeah, so we have a new text-to-speech model with high-fidelity voice cloning. This is really interesting. They the pricing is good. They actually have a free tier. I think it's 100 minutes a month, so everyone can just jump in and play with it through the API and get a feel for it. Further down on the page here, they have some examples of their voice cloning as opposed to some of the leading competitors out there, including 11 Labs and others. Yeah, there you go. But at the end of the day, it's getting to be a crowded space, and this is just another competitor in it. So I had it as optional.
Yeah, I had it as optional as well. And I had a feeling, which I rarely have, which I felt some sympathy for the venture capitalists in the space, but it quickly went away. Anyway.
No sympathy for them, John.
It came up and I was like, you're feeling bad for venture capitalists in Silicon Valley in the AI field? Are you crazy? Anyway, that was but yeah, it's a crowded space. I do think it's interesting. It's got a particular nuance and you know, as you go across these different things, I can see why they claim it's better, but man, it's a crowded space and everyday miracles, lots going on.
Paul, you good with that? Good with
optional?
Super. Wonderful. Thanks, Ankash. Let's move along.
The next one comes from LangChain, and it's a case study about how Vizient is empowering healthcare providers with reliable GenAI insights using LangGraph and LangSmith.
So, yeah, John, LangChain has a customer. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, you know, in the I would say we're starting to be real case snobs, which we should be, and this is a very, very thin case in terms of, you know, what's going on here. Yes, in healthcare. Yes, multi-agent stuff, integrating data, and so forth. But again, if they had employed a robot, they would have had a better case. You know, so. Robot omission, thin case, or dumb robot created this, not worth reading, optional.
Yeah, I had it optional as well. Paul, what do you think?
I love the idea of us being use case snobs. That's fantastic. I mean, I want use cases where your eyes bleed because it's so good, and this one's not getting to there as well. So optional.
No, absolutely not.
Excellent. Yeah, I think if people aren't aware of some of the capabilities out there with LangChain and LangGraph, it's worth taking a look at as an option for this type of solution. But this is an optional article.
I do want to highlight though that, I mean, So I've been software for 25 years, and careers and companies that sold to healthcare is where you go and die. And boy, in the last 5 or 6 years, with healthcare being 25% of the economy here in the U.S. and so many different pockets of it, we continue to see, real adoption there. So it's such a massive area. It's interesting for that thing, but doesn't change optional.
Optional it is. We're cooking today. Next article, Ankash.
Yes. So next is a research paper which talks about Goku, which is a flow-based video generative foundation model.
Paul, Goku Flow. What do you think?
Definitely very interesting lab stuff. More innovation like crazy on the video stuff, but it is a research paper, so I had to rate it as probably essential if video is a critical part of your revenue stream, essential, but optional for an everyday AI leader.
Yeah, the benchmarks, they have some fairly extensive benchmarks against the top models out there, and it's performing quite well, which is impressive, and it's also a bit of what I would expect. John, what did you think?
Yeah, I was on optional until I started looking into rectified flow as a way of doing this. And when you look at, rectified flow, I think is a big deal in terms of, the ability to do linear approximations when they're doing the denoising part of the, training. And that's a more generalizable, set of activities. A set of algorithmic improvements. And so, I don't know, I was on the fence. Visual is so important. This is just spectacular. If you go down into, I think it's in the paper, it talks about, it gives an instruction and create a raspberry, person, a raspberry female with a raspberry head and all this other stuff. And the resolution in this thing is just unreal. Might be on the, I don't know if it's there or might
No,
be.
it's if you go to the GitHub, I think that it gets
the
into
GitHub part. Yeah. It's just unreal.
Yeah, and what's interesting, John, to your point as well, is on the GitHub where you get into the benchmarks, you see that the places where it outperforms even the leading models like Huanyan and Luma is in things like object relationship and human action, right? And sort of the overall scene and the consistency. And I think you're right. It has to do with this different approach in terms of the flow transformer. And we'll probably continue to see it, sort of this new class of video generation models evolving here.
Yeah.
But this is another great example. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, this is just yet another example of this massive AI, what I'm calling the AI adoption gap. All these capability out there, but 99% of companies don't even have an LLM-driven chatbot for their public data on their website, and most companies have less than 10% employees have access to secure employee chatbots. It's really, really challenging for everyone out there. Oh, and by the way, all the top talents leaving big companies that go to hot startups. But other than that, it shouldn't be too hard to deploy stuff.
Yeah, I just think the the massive the skew in the economy we've never seen before, right? We're going to have our first trillionaire, I would predict, by the end of next year, or maybe the year after. The massive concentration of wealth by the folks who are driving. A lot of that wealth is built on the back of the technology that is enabling, is now going to the next level. So the wealthiest companies are getting phenomenally more wealthy and grabbing more market power, and then the funding, as we just saw, we'll probably talk about tomorrow. Musk and his buddies are bidding, just under $100 billion for OpenAI, and to be able to kind of put that money together and really not even make a dent in his own net worth. We're seeing that. I think we're seeing that play out on a global stage in terms of politics and power, and then in each industry, I think we're going to see companies that are either new or transforming are going to garner massive market power, because if you own the intelligence layer in your industry, you win, right?
And John, that's why I think the AI companies are the new football team for multi-billionaires. The vanity play is by a OpenAI or a Twitter or a TikTok. and get market power. You don't get that much market power unless you're gambling for NFL teams.
Yeah, and also you don't control the narrative, which then relates to political power. So I mean, this is like there's certainly a lot of folks in history who say that the Spanish-American War was basically pushed by Hearst, right? William Randolph Hearst, when he owned some of the most powerful newspapers in the country. I think we're there, but in addition, we have unbelievable algorithmic amplification. Right?
Right. And that's why Bezos made a mistake buying the Post for political power. And who was Benikoff? He bought the New Time or Newsweek.
Yes, and
buying yesterday's power broker.
Yeah, Bloomberg bought Business Week, right? Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think Musk lucked into it. I think he was high on ketamine one night and said, "I'm going to go buy, Twitter," and then sign some documents. But I think he lucked out. I think it was like the new Coke move actually helped Coca-Cola. I think he stumbled into an incredible asset. But there you go.
I think when you see what he starts doing with Grok 3 and the inference on the real-time data, you'll agree with me that it was no accident. This has been part of a plan. I mean, you look at he had the Everything app back before, when he started PayPal 2 decades ago. He's had his eye on this prize, I think, for a really long time. The screen just stopped loading there, but I was just going to point out the coherence on some of those examples, right? The adorable kangaroo wearing the purple overalls as opposed to the old man wearing the purple overalls and the cowboy boots, right? And how it just can nail in so many of those specific little details into the video prompt. And those are the exact prompts that were showcased with Sora when it was first brought to market, and we were all marveling over it. So, so here we are, full circle. It's been a year, and just about everyone can do this now. It's absolutely extraordinary.
Adam, I couldn't agree more. And we just so many opportunities in front of us. I would love to have a conference that was just on video, just on the video and the cutting edge and what the use cases are, because it's really it's breathtaking. It's viscerally powerful.
Seem to have lost my camera, but let's call it optional nonetheless and move on to the last.
All right.
The last one that we have for today comes from Amazon, and it talks about how Asian is using GenAI and Amazon Bedrock to translate scientific intent to results.
Yeah, I'll jump in here first and say that this was not one of the better Amazon articles, in my opinion. I don't know, it just seemed extremely wordy. Felt like they were doing a lot of sort of talking about what it was doing versus getting down to the real value of the use case and what they did to implement it. Maybe AWS has had so many really great use case articles that I'm holding them to a much higher standard, but I felt this one just didn't give me enough information about how they actually used the technology, the problem they solved. And it felt almost like the article we had earlier from Vizient, where it's like, look, someone's using AI with healthcare. So optional for me.
Yep, totally there. I was getting all excited at the beginning. I think this is a huge area, real world evidence. This platform, has unbelievable access. I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the Alzheimer's area. Drug companies doing Alzheimer research are willing to pay almost $100,000 a person in terms of getting into what's going on with the recruiting folks for Alzheimer trials. It's just unbelievable. So, but then there's it just kind of petered out. Optional. I don't know if we lost Adam. Adam, we lost your voice. We can't hear you.
Hey, Jeff, to bring me back up. There we go.
There we go.
Super. Thanks. Yeah, I fell down to the green room. So we'll go optional there as well. Very good.
Sounds good. All right.
Let's Ankaj, while you're putting the final tally together, Paul, you want to tell us about Seeker and the Learning Lab last night? How'd that go?
Yeah, it went really well. Seeker is a company that provides some code tools. I thought that was particularly interesting of how they really use question answer pairs to improve the reduce hallucination, particularly for applications like benefits and health related, that accuracy is really important here. So it was a good discussion, and we continue to see real progress on easier to use tools for companies to extract value out of their massive set of unstructured data. Those companies.
Yeah, very, very well done. People seem very interested. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I think that I just keep going back to, in terms of our audience and so forth, is I continue to see, I think we continue to see a gap between the understanding of what these things can do, what these models and capabilities are in organizations, and the ability to apply them. And I really worry about firms that are going to kind of wait and see, and because this is a whole learning effort, right? This is a capability, and this takes time to teach 20, 30%. I think you need to have like 20% of your organization understanding what's capable before you can even begin to understand what's going on. And I just keep going back to, because I grew up in Brockton, Mass, near the shoe factories, and, in the US, anyway, Waltham, Mass, and was where the first, industrial revolution was. And then it moved over to Lowell, Mass, because the Merrimack River, the Charles River only dropped about 3 feet, which was not enough power. And the Waltham and the Merrimack River dropped 13 feet up in Lowell. So it gave them more power to do stuff. And just imagining, if you walk into one of those factories and you're competing against people who are sitting there with spinning wheels and, shuttlecock looms and so forth that were manually done, and you just go in and see the reorganization of work, what could be done in those little mills, just the huge impact it had on, society. And I think we're at one of those moments. I mean, this is going to be.
Hey, John, these executives who've lived through this, Macy's and Toys R Us poo-pooed the internet as a stupid little tool. They did not understand it, did not stay close to the edge and watch those early things here. This is moving way faster. And I think we've got a whole bunch of companies that are going to be the Macy's, Yellow Cabs, and Toys R Us out there. And it's coming way faster. And we've got a whole slew of AI startups going after $100,000 jobs. I mean, it's breathtaking.
Well, the thing that strikes me too is that people are missing, I think, what is the most obvious compensation issue, which is that if I give you incentive to run the business as usual just a little bit better, that's what I'm going to get. And that's what most people, all the way up to the top of the house, CEO level, board level, that's what they're incented to do. When you look at startups, you have, it's fresh and all that other stuff. But in addition, startups basically give their best talent access to capital appreciation, not just incremental pay. And so if you want people to reinvent, your business, you have to give them access to capital appreciation. You have to give them the ability to share in that upside if you're going to rip the organization apart and do something different. And very, very few compensation systems have that in them. So, I think people are missing the obvious, which is the incentives are misaligned for reinvention.
Hey, John, I think you're right. And if we all know this thing's moving fast, so therefore most publicly traded companies, they're in the wins thing, will become gutted in 3 to 5 years. Private equity firms that actually get and understand this will have a chance to put in, reinvention and transformation projects. And boy, there's going to be a lot of different companies. 500 5 years from now.
My worry about the private equity firms, I agree they're going to do that. My worry is that they're going to do once and done and give none of it back to the labor. So they're going to, like, you look at what G3 did at Kraft, they just stripped that company of anything that took longer than 3 years to pay off. So they cut brand, they cut R&D, they cut human development, they cut education, right? And after they owned it for almost 3 years, their growth started to go like this, right? Yeah, no joke, you've been cutting all the growth stuff, and so then they had to turn into operators, and then they start selling off pieces and carving it up like a butcher, okay, that's my worry is private equity is going to do that. Whereas, great companies can say, okay, we can actually reinvent ourselves and be a different kind of company. You know what I mean? And in order to do that, you have to take some of that surplus from automation. You have to stick it back into labor. You have to pay your people more. You have to give them training. You have to, have them participate in the upside. You can transform a company. I hear what Vivek is saying. Internal processes are not the move. This tech is evolving. I would say yes and no. I mean, there's certainly, what's management supposed to do but design processes that make for improvement? I mean, what the heck do we pay those people for if they can't figure this out? You know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah, and Ram there from Colaberry has the comment about how it'll take some time for companies to adopt AI, similar to how other technologies are adopted in the past. And I agree, but I'll also say the ones who do it more quickly are going to eat their competitors' lunch, right? So you want to be that one that didn't take as long as everyone else in your field. That's what it comes down to.
So, but from a capital allocation standpoint, so the public investors who want to continue to invest in public companies should look for leadership that actually gets this and walks the talk. And if you're a private office or family office, you may want to put more money into startups and away from the public markets and PE firms. If you buy John's thesis that, I mean, we know that 95% of leaders of public companies won't do what John's outlining.
Well,
history shows that.
Yeah, I think that what's happened is that I think that the compensation consultants, along with management, have basically screwed up top-level compensation to have it be aimed at incremental improvement, not at reinvention. And we can go through it another time, but that's and look, I've been on a bunch of comp committees, and what happens is they come in and say, "Oh, you're in this sector. Who are your comparables? Here's the structure." They take the structure from other companies, and then they say, "Okay, let's put you in the top half of that." And and they, well, yeah, okay. So if I take comp systems that basically are designed to have I would think I put sweaters on dinosaurs, right? To have mature companies incrementally do better, and then I think I'm going to reinvent myself. It's like, come on. Well, yeah, I mean, that's like watching it, an overweight person sitting in a McDonald's and saying, okay, let's do whatever, a bad analogy, but it's just you draw from bad behavior, and you draw your incentive systems from that and do comparables against the mediocre. What are you going to get? Mediocrity. It's nuts.
So Adam, I'm going to post
Sweaters on dinosaurs, Paul. Where'd you find this guy?
I'm already typing in the OpenAI. Create an image of that, and we'll stick into our internal chat. That's a great analogy, John.
Yeah, Wade, well played. Ankash, why don't you give us the final tally? Thanks.
Adam, we just have one essential and all other optionals today.
Hopefully that's coming up. Yeah, there we go. So the Anthropic Economic Index, a lot of really good data, open source, and data-driven insights at the task level. So have a look at that. Everything else optional on the day. Paul or John, any last announcements before we send us off?
Nope. Lucinda's saying every CEO is above average, otherwise why were they hired? I can't tell if you're being cynical there or real, but anyway.
The only comment I have, Adam, I've had now about 6 people that I've created a deep seek analysis or deep OpenAI deep research analysis for in a very specific area where they were subject matter experts, Forever Chemicals in North Carolina, and people are blown away. So it's not perfect, but if you can impress the subject matter expert with a 15-page paper that is created in 6 to 15 minutes, and this is the worst deep research is going to be, Jesus Christ, Adam. So I encourage people, if you don't have it, send me an email. I'm happy to do it for you. It takes and
that was probably the only downside to that Stratechery article today being optional was that it's a really important point that people understand that for $200 a month, you're getting a fairly good research assistant at this point, which is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So fantastic discussions today, everyone. Thank you from the whole team to those of you tuning in and joining the discussion, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks.
Bye now.